Hello everyone, welcome back to the video, and in this session we are going to talk about the fundamentals of data, the basics of data fundamentals, like what are the types of it, what are the file extension, or how many types of databases we are going to have, what are the processes that we are going to see. So I have broken this entire data fundamentals in two parts, and today in this lecture I'm basically going to discuss the very basic, that is data fundamentals 1, and then I will be covering up data fundamentals 2 in the upcoming video. Okay, so if you haven't watched the roadmap video that is mentioned in this same playlist, I will mention that in the description as well. Please go and have a look at it, that what is the exact roadmap that I'm going to follow in the process to become the complete, or in the process to make a complete package for data analysis or business analysis. Okay, so I'm going to basically cover the entire thing. So let's start with the video that we are going to cover the data fundamentals 1. Okay, so what data is actually? So when we talk about data, the data is just that a collection of information, or we can say that the collection of values is basically called as data. Okay, so in the domain of data, we are basically dealing with three types of data, that is structured data, semi-structured data, as well as unstructured data. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to cover about what unstructured data is. Okay, so unstructured data, any kind of images, audios, videos, any GIFs, or any images format or anything if we are having, and we need to apply some machine learning, deep learning, or any AI algorithm in order to extract the text or the information that is present inside them. So in that scenario, it is basically termed as unstructured data. Okay, so the example of unstructured are images, videos, or audios. You can say that Google Lens is one of the process or one of the tool by which we are reading the unstructured data, like we are using the Google Lens to extract the text from the images, right? So that is one of the example of unstructured data. Now coming to structured and semi-structured data. So whenever we are dealing with any type of data that is present in Excel or in any type of relational databases, that is SQL servers or SQL, so there we are basically using the structured data. Structured data consists of the entities and the attributes. Okay, so wherever I basically refer to entities, that means the column names which basically describe that which type of data is present inside them. So that is basically called as the entities, and all the data values that is present, like transaction ID is the entity, and the data values like 1112, 1113, 1114. So all these three are basically the attributes. Okay, attributes means the data values that are present in the data. Okay, so this is the example of one table we are having as purchase table, and here we are having multiple entities. These entities are basically describing what type of data is present inside them. These arrows and relation we are going to discuss earlier. We are going to discuss it ahead in the upcoming slide, that what actually this means or what actually this is. So we will discuss that in the next slide. Here we just overcome that structured data is always in the form of rows and columns, and it is stored in the tables. Okay, now talking about semi-structured data, when you are having a collection of data but that data is not well organized or in a well manner or a well pattern made, so that is basically considered as semi-structure. And the example of the file type that you are watching in the slide is basically the JSON file. Okay, so the JSON is one of the example of semi-structure. Now let's talk about, let me summarize this entire thing, that is structured, semi-structured, and unstructured, by giving the examples, right? So in structured data means what? the data that we are storing in the form of rows and tables in Excel or in SQL servers, in a SQL databases. So that is basically considered as the structured data. Then whenever we are following, we are not actually, we are trying to follow a pattern, but that pattern is not fixed. At that moment, it is considered as the semi-structured data. The example is JSON file. The unstructured data are the kind of data when we need to apply any algorithm or any machine learning to extract the information from it. Example, images, videos and audios. So this is the core data difference between all the three types of data. Okay, let's move ahead with how is data stored in the file, and one more slide I am having, that how is data stored in the databases. Actually, this is the major slide that is we are having, that how is data stored in the databases. So there are two parameters. First parameter is you need to define a proper file extension, like which type of file you are storing, and before understanding which type of file or file extension, you need to understand which type of data is going to fit inside which file extensions. Okay, so that we are going to discuss it here. So first difference, let's see that let me compare for you that what optimized file format is and what are unoptimized file formats. Okay, so optimized file formats are basically the file formats which are using the correct data type. That means in unoptimized format, let's take an example. You are saying that we have one employee ID as number 1. Okay, so employee ID 1 is basically which type of data? That is integer type of data. So this should have a data type of int, right? But unfortunately, the user who has created the table has mentioned this column of employee ID as n_var_char max. Okay, so n_var_char is basically used to store the string values, right? So when we are storing the string value inside the integer data type, or when we are storing integer data type in string data type value. Okay, so in these both scenarios we are using wrong data type, and that is where it is considered as unoptimized file extensions. Okay, so that is the difference between optimized and unoptimized file format extensions. Now coming to the file extensions, you must have seen the delimited text files as CSV. Like whenever we are having a large volume of data and it is followed by a fixed pattern. Fixed pattern means each entity or each attribute is basically distributed or separated using one specific comma. Okay, one specific comma, that is known as delimited text. It can be comma, it can be semicolon, it can be open bracket, it can be any special character symbols or anything, any fixed pattern which basically distributes the entities or the attributes. So that is basically considered as delimited text. JSON and XML both are used to store the semi-structured data. We have seen the example of JSON. XML is also a bracket tag programming language. So these both are basically considered as the semi-structured data file extensions. Okay, now coming to blobs. So blobs are what? Blobs are kind of binary object language. So blob is basically said as binary object language. Binary object means what? Whenever you are trying to store any semi-structured data or unstructured data, so the machine does what? Machine breakdowns the entire data in the form of binary, that is 1 or 0. Okay, so blobs are used to store semi-structured or unstructured data. Fine. Now coming to the other three big data file extensions or the large volume file extension that we are using, that is Avro, Parquet and ORC. Okay, so Avro is what? Avro is a file extension that is used or that is storing the data in the form of rows and columns. Okay, in the form of rows and columns as we are storing in Excels. Now Parquet and the ORC, that is object relational columnar, is basically used to store the data in column format. And why we are storing the data in the column format? To get the query optimization at a peak. Means if our query is taking very long time, let's take an example that you are having a CSV delimited text file, comma delimited text file, and you are having a parquet delimited text file. So whenever you will write a query, the parquet query will be much more faster as comparison to delimited text, because it is having some summarization of data also in the column format. So that is why in most of the large data sets or big data file extensions, we are using parquet as the data type. Okay, so these are the file extension that you must be aware about. Now coming to how is data stored in databases. So once the file extension is decided, now you need to choose that which type of database am I going to store the data. Fine. Okay, so now let's come to this. So first step we are having relational database. Okay, relational database. Relational data means database means what? So when we are storing multiple tables, right? We are having the multiple tables. The same example we have seen earlier also, that we were having these tables. Okay, so in this table you can see, let's suppose you are not having this customer table or product table. Okay, you just have a purchase table. So by the purchase table you can find the data of transaction ID, customer ID, product ID, and purchasing date. Now let me ask you a question, that if you want to get the detail of the customer, that is 24221, without having this customer table, you won't be able to find the exact detail of this customer, right? So that is where a relational database plays a role. We are breaking this table into multiple small tables, and this step is basically called as normalization step. Okay, we will discuss that ahead also, that what normalization is. Fine. Now let's come to this. Yeah, so when our main table is present and our multiple small tables are linked with these main tables, so there we are considering the relation between these tables or databases, and that's where we call it as relational database. And relational database are used to store what? A relational database is basically used to store the structured data that is present in the rows and columns. Okay, now coming to the non-relational databases. In non-relational databases we have databases of 4 types. That is key value database, where we are having one key means one primary identity and then one value present with it. Okay, so that is basically considered as the key values. Then we have graph non-relational databases, means where these nodes, these round circle balls that you are watching, these are basically the nodes, and these arrows are the edges that define the relationship. These edges basically define the relationship, what is the relation between both of them. Okay, now let me show you the same thing. Like if I show you key value, okay, so you can see these key are basically unique and the values can be different. So this is what we are having, key value data type, that is non-relational databases. The rest 3 database I am going to cover in the next video. Till the time, if you have any doubt or anything related to this non-relational databases, relational databases, or any previous video questions or anything, please drop the comment and I will definitely answer that. Thank you.